Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Simply Tech Live. This is your first time tuning in. Simply Tech Live is a collection of discussions with technologists and business leaders on the evolving landscape of technology. And of course, one of the most important components of technology is the human component. And today, we're going to be talking a little bit about leadership. Ali, can you talk about this amazing guest that we have set up for today?
I am super excited. And again, we've had amazing guests in the past, but this one is kind of special because I've had the privilege to work with this awesome leader. I would consider her one of the best inside Microsoft. I've been working at Microsoft for 15 years. But the story, and as we kind of discuss about this specific leader and her journey within Microsoft is going to be something that, we will learn a ton from it. And I'm really looking forward to have the dialogue and conversation. I know we planned this long time ago, but super excited that finally we have her on stage. Maybe it's a good time to do the formal introduction.
Yeah. And this is a live discussion, so we're inviting everyone to please ask questions, add comments. You can talk amongst yourself in the live chat here on LinkedIn as we bring in the Vice President of Enterprise Sales for the West region at Microsoft, Katy Brown.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, Katy, how you doing?
I am good. Already a busy morning, but I've really been looking forward to this conversation and really appreciate you guys inviting me to join this live broadcast.
Perfect.
We were just chatting before we got on today, and we didn't have the chance to ask you, what is giving you energy today?
Today, I usually like to start my day with some kind of workout. And so that's been hard with the gyms closed. And so I had an opportunity to go out for a short run before the day got going. So I always appreciate that. And that does give me some energy to get the day off to a good start.
Awesome. So let's jump right into the conversation. One of the things that I would like to ask you personally, again, like anybody in this world, for the past 12 months, we went through a lot of changes. And when you think about the business, like the MTCs are working closely with your team and, everybody else inside the US territory. But how have you seen the team efforts and, the organization has changed and adapted due to COVID and, from where we were 12 months ago and where we are today? And how do you see, the next 12 months as we kind of evolve with this new normal?
Yeah, no, look, I'm not going to kid you. It's been hard. It's been really hard. It's hard to believe we're 1 year in. I have been in my home office pretty much the entire time. And as someone in sales, anyone in sales or in the jobs, I miss being in the office. I miss being with the team. I miss seeing customers. I miss being on the road. I miss the stupid stuff like being in traffic and waiting for flights. But this is, our new reality. And so it's been hard, and it's not lost on me how hard it's been, for my team. And I think the hardest part of it is what we've all recognized is that we're now taking on, many different roles, at home and at work. And it's hard to know when the day ends. And so we always laugh. It's like Groundhog Day again. Here we go again. So, I think people are just doing the best they possibly can just to work through this incredibly challenging time. And for what the future holds, gosh, I don't know. I think we're going to move probably more to a hybrid state. I can't believe we'll actually go back to how it was. But we're just trying to figure that out right now. But I think first and foremost, we want to make sure that, our team and people's safety and well-being, that has to come first. And so whatever decisions are made, that will remain, top of mind for us as we think about as we return to work.
And what is the message from the customers? I know, you meet with leaders virtually these days using Teams, for example, but what are you hearing from the customer side? I assume that going through the same journey, is it in any way changing the way they think about how they're going to invest in their technology and Microsoft Cloud solution and other technologies that they want to use? Has anything changed from like last year?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's changed a lot for our customer landscape. I think many of them had to figure out how to mobilize and work remotely very, very quickly. Some of them were already doing that, and others weren't. And so, and it's great. It's all, because many of the customers really leaned on Microsoft to help them, figure out how to work remotely, but in a secure way, and relied on our technology. And I think I've been super proud of the team and how they've really rallied to help the customers do that and enable it. I think we're all in a very similar situation. I often tell people, hey, look at Works right now because we're all working remotely. I personally feel like when it's going to get really hard is when some people are in the office, some people are working remotely, and still trying to ensure everyone feels included and inclusive, in the conversation, and respect where people feel, how people feel about being back in the office. And so I think that's kind of the big challenge on the horizon that I've been talking to customers a lot about.
Something interesting that came up in one of the meetings that we had with you, we were talking about the business, between MTC and, the West OU. Mm-hmm. And you had a question about what's the business looking on your side? Are you guys busier or not? And we look at the dashboard and we told you that, hey, we're even busier than last year. And one thing that we see as a trend is by using technology like Teams, it actually brings us even closer to the customer. Like in the past, we had to ask them to come to the centers. It was sometimes pain, like dealing with traffic, but now it's going to be much easier. But it's more like a double-edged sword because also it gets us more busier than before.
Yeah.
And then how to manage the meetings after meetings after meetings. So I can imagine, what your day looks like, from day to day, like your schedule is going to be filled, right? How do you deal with this change, from a leadership point of view, or how you manage your time efficiently?
Yeah, it's so interesting because, look, we've all been in meetings all day long, but it's very different being on meetings, one, remotely, and then two, on video all day. It is a lot harder because you get energy from people, when you're in the room with them, you bounce energy back and forth. And so it's a lot harder to do that on video. So I'm trying really hard to build in more breaks. In my day. I've actually shifted my meetings, and I'm encouraging my team to do the same. Instead of 30-minute meetings, do 25-minute meetings, start 5 minutes after the hour versus finishing 5 minutes early, because everybody always takes that additional 5 minutes. Yesterday I had 2 one-on-one meetings, and I grabbed my dog and I walked for an hour and took those 2 one-on-ones. It's just the way, you do what you can just to manage, through the day, because this is so much harder than being in person and being in the office, especially when you're doing it all day long. I mean, the good news is you do have, I think, much greater accessibility to people, including our customers, and they really are carving out time to meet with you. But boy, it drains a lot more out of you, doing it all day. And so you just need to be sensitive to that as well.
Awesome.
One of the things, and I'm so glad that you asked that question, Ali, about kind of understanding from Katy's perspective, like how she's managing her time. And Katy, you mentioned you're really taking a really long and hard look with empathy and proximity into how others are working in your organization. Mm-hmm. And you're no stranger to being able to adopt new ways of working and injecting new thinking into your organization. Can you talk about what you've been doing to help some of these folks?
Yeah. It was back in, I think it was late October timeframe, and I was having a conversation with my business manager, and we were just talking about the health and well-being of the folks within our region. And he was really honest. He said, look, people are burnt out. They're overwhelmed. They're working way too long hours. They're not spending enough time with customers, way too much time on internal meetings. And I was feeling the same. And so we just made the decision. We're like, you know what? Why don't we just give the whole month of November back? Let's remove every single internal meeting within our control that we create and give that time back, and give that time back so that, people can spend more time with customers, with partners, finish their training, with their family, their own well-being. And it was so funny because my business manager said, he goes, can we do that? Who do we need to get permission from? I said, you know what? We're just going to do it. I said, this is so important. We have to reset. We have to drive greater balance in our days. And we have to optimize our time in our days with our customers and with our partners. And I'll take the heat. Don't worry about that. Let's just go ahead and do it. And we did it. And I think it went over very well, because one of the things I also told the team is, like, we still have a business to run. So I can't, we can't fall back on our business priorities. And so it just meant I had to rely more on the tools to get updates for internal briefs. And so I said, look, I still need to rely on you to update the tools so that we can meet our financial responsibilities, but we're not going to do additional internal meetings to get those updates. And it went over well. I think it went over very well.
It's interesting. I mean, one of the best memories that I had, at least, for this past 12 months, is the holiday events that you helped and, coordinated. And the one that I joined, I'm an avid Scotch drinker. I like single malt. And it was so much fun to just, be with the rest of the team virtually and go through something that engaging and that fun. And again, I want to thank you for your leadership, and not just to make all of us accountable to make sure that we're gonna meet our requirements to meet the demand, but also bring a little bit of fun to make sure that working is still fun even though we're not seeing each other in person.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that as well. In addition to giving time back, we also tried to incorporate some level of fun and social events. I think we did this West Region Got Talent, and, we just did different wine tasting events. And I know a lot of companies are doing that as well, but I think it's important, provide a level of connection, with one another. The other thing we did that probably went over, I think the best of everything is we stopped working. It's laptops down 1:00 on Fridays. So it's half day Fridays. And I just said, look, at 1:00 on Fridays, that is your time. That is your time to spend how you choose. But I do not want you working. I do not want you doing emails. I do not want you in meetings. And we all have to abide by it. And just an overwhelming positive response, from the teams. And I would say that productivity has even increased while people are working. We're seeing a higher level of productivity, and people really look forward to having that afternoon off before even they hit the weekend. And some people choose to catch up on training. Some people use it they can use it to catch up on email, but we ask not to send it, because if they see you sending email, then they'll feel as if that's creating work. And I have to abide by that as well. And it's been really, really nice.
There's a question. Haiti just sent a question to you, which is related to the topic that you were just talking about. And she's asking, what tips can you give for your team to maintain a healthy work-life balance, especially when some team members are working from home? Which is kind of alluded to what you just shared. But if any other insight or any other tips that you want to share?
Yeah, I just think it's super important to create boundaries in your day, figure out what's most important. And, I try really hard in the morning to get up, some small level of meditation. I'm working on that as a practice, but having coffee with my husband and doing a little bit of exercise, and then really start my day about 8:30. And make sure you take breaks during the day, but then end that day at a normal time at 5:30. We all know you can just sort of keep working right up into the dinner hour and then get right back at it. And so those boundaries are incredibly, incredibly important. Routine's important. They're establishing that same level of routine that you did when you were working in the office. That seems to help me, a lot. And then one thing I've been working on is sleep. I used to pride myself on getting 5 hours of sleep, almost wore it like a badge of honor, which is ridiculous when you stop and think about it, but now I'm trying really hard to watch less TV, read more, and then sleep more. And I'm up to like 6.5 to 7 hours of sleep a night, which is a lot, trying to push towards 8. But it makes a huge difference. And I'll tell you, sleep gives you energy for that next day. I would say sleep is needed now more than ever, working, virtually and remotely and on video all day.
Awesome. It's interesting, our leader, April Walker, that you know her as well.
Yeah.
Every time there is an email going out after 6 p.m. or, during the weekend, there's just like, I'm going to slap your hand. I mean, do not send an email. And there's a valid tone behind it. And, it really makes sense. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
What I would like to do next, perhaps we're going to get to know Katy a little bit more. And I want to, start with first time I met you, it was almost 2 years ago. And this was the first time that I met you in person. I knew you from the past, and, as we were working remotely between, the SoCal business and, the Northwest, etc. But you did this speech about your personal story, something that resonated really well with me, and something that till today I still remember is like a vivid memories. And it was so inspiring. And one of the things that I learned that day, I know that today we're going through this, Dare to Lead training inside Microsoft, but it was how you can be vulnerable and still share your experiences and help to inspire other people. That day you inspired me. So I would like to ask if that's okay with you to share a little bit about your, story and, how you get to where you are today as a great leader inside Microsoft.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And, it's always great to hear that, and something I said or a conversation that we had, had an impact on you. And so, look, I believe that you're shaped as a leader through the experiences that you have in your life, some good and some hard. We're all going to hit some level of adversity throughout our life. And mine hit me about personally, probably 15 plus years ago, when it kind of hit from a, at its height perspective. But, as a first line manager at Microsoft, I had picked up and moved my family to Atlanta, had no family there. And, for my husband and his job, and it was going very, very well. And, I found myself, 4 years into that, being in Atlanta in an incredibly challenging situation. My happily ever after marriage was falling apart, and I had 3 little girls, 2, 5, and 10. And, and I think, many people, and I think some people are afraid to talk about it, but, my husband at the time suffered from alcoholism, and it was becoming progressively worse, and it was becoming an increasingly, volatile environment for us to be in. And, it's when you talk about being courageous, or when you talk about, being vulnerable, when I think about that time now, they really do go hand in hand. Because the outside looking in, everything looked perfect, perfect family, perfect marriage, perfect, got a great job, have this lovely house. And it wasn't at all. And so, it took a tremendous amount of courage for me to step away from that, because I knew I needed to step away from that. And there was some incredible leaders and people in my life, that helped me do that. And so, I think one of the things that I think back on is, when one of the hardest things is to be vulnerable. And in order to be vulnerable, you have to be willing to let go of some control, and you have to be willing, because what it means to be vulnerable is that you can't control the outcome of an event or an action you take or what potentially you say. And so you have to be vulnerable before you can be courageous, because I was choosing comfort over courage. And what I mean by comfort was, it was so hard to really truly face the situation that I was in, to confront it and to take action for myself and my children. And I finally did. And, I had to rebuild and had to restart, and was able to move back, to, the Bay Area. And I think that's just taught me a lot about what it means truly to be courageous, what it means to be vulnerable, what it means to be empathetic towards other people and their situations. I had a leader at a time who was amazing, who really supported me throughout the process and helped me, find another role. I had to move myself and the girls back to the Bay Area. Was still supported and still stayed with Microsoft, and that was incredibly helpful. I had to rely on, family to open up their homes, to support us, to give us a place to leave, because we had to, leave, everything. So, it was a very, very dark, challenging time. But, I think there's a lot you can learn from that. And I think it helps shape you as a leader and how you move forward and sort of the decisions that you make, moving forward. So.
Katy, this is the first time I've heard this story. And Ali, talk to me about why this was important. And in the details he provided to me, I thought it really changed my perspective on you as a leader. Because from person to person, you just think, like you mentioned, you had this lovely house and everyone has these lovely things around them. And it's so easy to kind of classify who they are by the things that you see and also judge them by those things. And this is just a perfect example of not judging a book by its cover and really understanding the adversity people have gone through. What is your best coaching for people? And you mentioned you had some of these folks that are very close to you that really helped you guide you to your best self. What's your coaching for folks in leadership, in individual contributors, folks that are not in the business that personally want to help others and guide them to their best self?
There's kind of two aspects of it, because you're right. If you want to help someone else or if you're someone who requires help. And so for starting with your question, if you want to, kind of figure out how to help someone is, just to be there for them, just to experience alongside them. I think about this manager when I was in Atlanta, and I was so afraid to say anything because work was some level of a normalcy for me. And I needed that to keep myself sane because there was such chaos going on, at home. And so when I finally reached out and let that person in, she could not have been more empathetic, more understanding, like, we're going to help, we're figure this out. And it was it was truly a display of empathy in action. And I know we talk a lot about it. It wasn't I am so sorry for you. Because also you're like, oh, wow. Like, oh, yeah, I am really sorry for me. This is horrible. But if someone said, you know what, that sucks. That really sucks. I'm here for you. I'm going to help you figure this out. And she was a person of influence and power. And so that even has more meaning, right? So, currently as a leader, if there's someone in your organization and they're struggling and they reach out to you, you have just such a tremendous opportunity to have such an impact on their life. And she did. I frankly do not know where I would be today without her and then the others and my family, my sister, my mom, that helped me through such a hard time. But it really did take that first step of me reaching out because no one had any idea. Because I remember when I started to let people in, they were like, oh my God, I have no idea. You guys show up to parties, your husband's the life of the party, you're the perfect couple, you're blah, blah, blah. And that wasn't the case at all. And so that's where I talk about, allowing yourself to be vulnerable, reach out, right? Be courageous. And there are definitely people out there that, want to help. And if you are so fortunate to have someone reach out to you, just being there for them and truly being empathetic and being alongside them and giving them the courage to make some of those really hard decisions, you will absolutely change a person's life because that's what they did for me.
That's so true. And as we have this conversation with a couple of our guest speakers, is that when we talk about empathy in action, it's always in a case that there is a hardship. There's something that happened in someone's personal life. You had your story. I had my case with, having my son being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes and how it changed our point of view of how to do things and, how to be more empathetic to other people. And it's just not just the work, right? But one question I have for you is the very first time that you decided to go and, talk about all these challenges in front of a large audience, what was your thinking and, what was your mindset? Were you, were kind of skeptical? Were you scared? Always, talking about something for the first time in front of a large audience is kind of, cause a lot of stress. But what was your mindset back then when you did it for the first time?
So interesting you asked that question, because I was just thinking about that last night. Is, to be honest, it's really not until recently I've been talking about it. I think it was really 2.5 years ago, that presentation I gave to the extended leadership team was really one of the first times. And then I spoke about it at a conference, but it was just a very small summary of the situation. But one thing I've realized is that, I think that there are so many people that are suffering in similar situations. And just, I think the more I can share my story or what I've experienced, and if it just helps one other person, then that means everything to me. And so, and I think also this is who I am, this is who I am. And my experiences have helped shaped me. I don't think I wouldn't change anything. I have 3 beautiful daughters, and they're all doing well and thriving. I was able to remarry, but that's 15 years later, so, but it just starts with taking small steps and starts with being authentic. It starts with being vulnerable, which leads to being courageous, and then I think it's an opportunity for me to, to give back. And if I can just help just one other person, then that goes a long way.
That's awesome.
And we've got a lot of engagement and a lot of love coming in from the live chat. Folks are Jennifer Stengel, thank you for being vulnerable with us today. Katie, many Faiza, Katie, thank you for being vulnerable and sharing the story. Just a lot of people just with exclamation points behind their comments, just really adoring the fact that you've been sharing with us.
Yeah.
So another question, and probably that's going to be the last question. I know you're very busy and we have limited time with you.
So,
if you think about like people that they're going to listen to this now, or maybe when the recording is available, probably you want to categorize it in 2 different buckets. One is people that they need some uplifting, meaning that they're going through some hardship, and they need somebody like you to come and talk to them and kind of show them that, hey, this is not the end of the world. There's a lot that we can do as humans, and we can help each other and help us, uplifting each other. And you also have other group that they have a story to tell, but maybe they're not ready to be vulnerable and, let that out. What would be your advice for both groups?
I think, don't go at it alone, and I think that one of the problems I had for many years was I isolated, and so again, as I said before, I think, reaching out. The truth is you're going to reach out when you feel as if you're in a safe place. There's a level of psychological safety for you. And that's certainly, understandable. But I think if you find yourself in any sort of level of isolation or not sharing or not being your true authentic self, then I think that just progressively it gets worse and worse and worse. And what's so interesting when I think, and I tie it all the way back to my career, my career really didn't move forward until I got very honest with myself, with my marriage, where I was at, what I wanted, how I felt as a woman, and what I wanted, as a woman in my career. When I worked through all that, as hard as that all was, and got to the other side, didn't hit and didn't go around the door, but went through that door, that's when I think other opportunities really started to open up for me. And in part because you start to build confidence, you start to believe in yourself again. You start to shift the dialogue from sort of this, why me? Why does this always happen to me? Why? And I remember this so well, because I was very much in this, why me? God, this sucks. Why me? These are my brothers. This isn't my friends. This isn't me. This isn't what the life I set out to live. And then I finally started to shift and thought, why not me? Like, why not me? Why not that opportunity? Why am I not the best person for that role? And I realized it all started with me. And it started with me and having the confidence and the belief in myself, that I could do more, that I could go for it, that I could, have other experiences and other roles. And so that's probably the best advice I could give. It just starts with that first decision, reaching out to that first person, just kind of, and then you make the next decision, and then you start to walk through that door. and you get through to the other side, and then you'll be just amazed at the opportunities that are just waiting for people. And you can relate this to really anything in life. But so that's, I guess, what I'd say.
That's so true. Have you thought about writing a book?
Oh, I don't know.
Too busy, huh?
I read a lot. I don't know. I'm not a great writer, so I would need a lot of help. But I don't know. Maybe you've inspired me, Ollie.
Well, we'll tie it off with Ken Miller and Matt Hughes are the last two to leave some comments. Ken says, "I agree. You sharing your story and being vulnerable absolutely inspires others." And Matt says, incredibly powerful. So, Katy, you really touched the lives of folks today, and I know you will be continuing to do so, not only in your job at Microsoft, but also in your thought leadership and the way that you inspire others across many, many domains. So thank you so much for coming on the show with us.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I really enjoyed it a lot. Anytime.
Thank you, Katy.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone, for watching.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.